Hello and welcome to Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho. Today we take a closer look at South Africa's healthcare crisis. The healthcare system has become the focus of a heated debate. Operation Dudula, an anti-migrant group, is accused of blocking foreign nationals from accessing its government clinics and public hospitals, claiming they strain public services. Human rights group call the campaign xenophobic, warning it violates our constitutional rights and risks a wider healthcare crisis. Despite a governmental crackdown and arrests, the group continues its actions. To unpack all these tensions, Dr. Malpeng Impia, a legal and political analyst based in Johannesburg, shed some light on the complex mix of economic frustrations, political failures, and social anxieties driving the conflict. Welcome to Different Perspectives.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure to be on your platform. And I believe this is the first time on this platform. So I'm actually
Absolutely.
excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And first of all, let me congratulate you. You just told me that you're a new dad. My congratulations to you and your wife.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, it's fun times. You're gonna enjoy this period. I have two little girls, and it's gonna be fun going forward for you. Is it a boy or girl?
A boy. It's a
Very
boy.
good, very good.
So the
Enjoy this
legacy still
moment.
lives on.
Bring us up to speed. There is a bit of tension across South Africa. There's been so much circulation on social media about these vigilantes or activists who are going around at different hospitals and clinics trying to chase foreigners who live in South Africa from accessing some of those very, very critical institutions. Your
Yes.
thoughts?
No, actually, that is true. However, I think it's quite important to trace back migration into South Africa. Basically, the whole migration pattern of many of the neighboring countries, many of the people in the neighboring countries, such as Swaziland, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Namibia, that started in the 1800s when the boom, the gold rush, and the Witwatersrand began. Basically, that's when the whole migration pattern and the labor market, including people from the rural areas within South Africa, Lesotho people, the Mozambicans and Zimbabweans coming this side. So that is the proper background into this thing. Now, the later part of what you've been witnessing now, first and foremost, let's get it right. The people whom Dudula movement primarily are chasing away are illegal foreigners. So they are people whom are undocumented, who have entered illegally the borders of South Africa. So let's get that one right. They are not chasing away any other African person who is in South Africa legally. At least that is as far as they say. And having watched, there's a program actually called X Deport, wherein they would actually vet these people and say, if you've got documents, we don't have any problem with you. You are welcome to stay in South Africa. The problem is the illegal or undocumented people who are in South Africa.
To your point, I've seen a lot of those activists going around asking for IDs from people. Are they even allowed to do that? Where do they get the authority to go around asking people on the streets if they are citizens or not?
Now, a proper background to that particular act, it's the following. Now, South African government has on various occasions admitted that it has porous borders. Basically, we have neglected our borders, and as a result, South Africa is seen as a relatively prosperous country compared to other countries in Africa. And thus, you will have a lot of economic migrant and also refugees proper, because the war in the DRC, Central African Republic, the war in Mozambique, all those people, the relative safest place has been South Africa, accompanied by its relative economic performance. So the what triggered, and by the way, the word Dudula means pushback in isiZulu. So basically, what these groups of people are saying, we are saying we are pushing back against the incompetence of the government, and we will do our part. Now, you've asked me as to the legality of their actions. Well, as far as I know the law, there is what we call citizen arrest. If you observe someone committing a crime, you don't have the same duty as a police. However, you may, if you want to, arrest that person and wait for the police. And by the way, what I've observed with Dudula, it's that whenever they are going to do these operations, they call the police and say, we want you to come with us so that you can assist us in apprehending people who are here illegally. And also, what I've observed is that the police do not seem to be coming to the party. Now, I would then say it is perfectly legal for any citizen to want to see any, to eradicate any type of illegality, including the illegality of undocumented people. We can argue about the manner in which they're doing it. Is it dignified? Is it something that perhaps the police should do more? We know that they are failing. So I'm in between. I'm a Pan Africanist. I don't believe that we should be chasing each other in the manner that we do. I believe that we should be educating each other so that any one of us can be able to have food on the table. The Nigerians who are here, the Zimbabweans who are here, are not here because they choose to. They would rather be at home, but they would rather come here and face the humiliation and unfortunity of Dudula than to die of hunger at their home. If I was in their position, I would try to do it lawfully.
Let me do a quick follow up on that. You say
Yeah.
that some of these migrants commit illegal actions. I'm just curious, what kind of illegal action is it for a person to go to a clinic, for a person who is sick to go to a hospital, showing up regardless of their immigration status?
Now, the South African Constitution. So let me get it right. It is not the action of an illegal or undocumented foreigner to go to a hospital that is criminal. That is not criminal. The South African Constitution does provide for them to get medical care. So that act is not illegal. And Dudula, it's not arresting, it's not attempting to um arrest them or chase them away from the hospital on the basis of them going to the hospital. It is on the basis that they're in South Africa illegally. So that's the nuance there. They're not chasing them away because of constraints of resources, whatever the case might be. No, 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 no. It's the fact that under any normal circumstances, right, with a functioning community, you would have a functioning government. If somebody presents themselves at a hospital, an illegal, uh, undocumented person, you would heal them first because person first, right? You would give them medical care. and then after that arrest them in terms of the Immigration Act and then deport them home. That does not seem to happen in South Africa. If we are speaking about black letter law, the application of the law, it's that any person who present themselves at any hospital, at any police station, they would be given the care that they need at that point. But after they're okay, they should be arrested and be deported back to their country until they sort out their papers. That's how it should work.
In your view, do you think Dudula's actions fit into South Africa's broader political and socio-economic climate as we speak?
Politically, no, it doesn't fit into the narrative of South Africa because South Africa, and primarily the Emancipating Party being the ANC, owes its homage to the neighboring countries, to the very same neighboring countries whom gave them refuge during colonial apartheid times. Thus, our stance have always been that everyone is welcome in South Africa. But you see, we ought to be careful, Paul, in the sense that if there are constraint of resources in South Africa, and South Africa is very racialized. So, for someone who does not know the impact of undocumented um, immigrants or migrants in South Africa, from a distance, they seem not to pose harm. But the reality of the issue is the employers in South Africa would then take the very status of people being undocumented, use them to their advantage, exploit our fellow Zimbabweans, our fellow Mozambicans, to like slavery conditions. They work in farms, they're abused. Let me give you an anecdote that I know personally. There were my fellow Zimbabweans who are undocumented, working for this particular person whom was making them make bricks on a daily basis. Then those people did not want to pay. Mind you, the brick factory is opposite the police station. The South African police see these people go in and out every day for years. When these people do not want to pay them, they go to the police station and say, these people are undocumented, arrest them when it comes to payment.
After
That
exploiting them.
anecdote, yes, that anecdote goes on and on into restaurants you might have seen in many sectors of South Africa, in the trucking or logistics area as well. Now, it's no wonder that South Africans now feel that the unemployment, the statistics just came out a few days ago. We are sitting, if I'm not mistaken, around 40% or so unemployment amongst youth. So it's unacceptable. But unfortunately, the solution, it's not the way that Dudula is doing it. We must force our government to do better in terms of protection of the borders. Secondly, we must force the AU because, mind you, Mr. Paul, that Africa does not suffer from any lack of anything. We suffer from incompetence of leaders and inability to own means of production so that each and every African can eat. So for me, if you're looking at Dudula and its action from a micro perspective, you're missing the whole point because it's never going to stop. No one will want to die wherever they are until you sort out the problems of Zimbabwe, until you sort out the problems of Lesotho, until you sort out the problems of Mozambique. You will always have this problem. So, mine is to push back at the AU and all the leaders in Africa and hopefully have people such as Traores multiplied by 50 55, meaning the whole continent. Get people like him to make sure that each and their citizens eat. That is the solution, not this Mickey Mouse thing that Dudula is doing in South Africa. It's never going to solve anything in the long run.
To the point that you referenced earlier, you said that once upon a time during the apartheid regime, South Africans had the privilege of going across Africa. They lived in these other countries, and these all these other African countries gave them an open hand. They welcomed them. They lived there as refugees. But
Yes.
fast forward a couple years later, now the reverse is true. All these people from different African countries are experiencing turmoil. They are, they are
Yes.
looking for a place that can give them that the same kind of accommodation that was given to South Africans when they were in need. But here we are
Yes.
facing dudulas and we are facing all sorts of other things. In fact, some critics have said that this is uh, as xenophobic as it gets.
Well, I wouldn't go that far as calling it xenophobic, but let me qualify the statement of South Africans during colonial times having refuge. In there, and I don't even know why the ANC does what it does. There were many of these countries that sold out the ANC people and they were killed. So whenever we say this, it should not be very pure. It should not be as if all these countries welcome us with no, 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 no. Some of them, when we were hiding, they made sure that they told the Nets, the Afrikaners here, to come and find out where we were and killed many of our people. So I want to qualify that, and but also I don't want to seem to be putting an excuse to defend the Dudula people. I just want history to be reflected properly because we tend to think that it was a very harmonious relationship. It wasn't. Many people were ratted out, and many people lost their lives. But to that point of xenophobia, first and foremost, it is unfortunate that I wouldn't say many of the Dudula members are naive, but I would say the partition of Africa has made Africans to feel and think in very isolated sort of manner. South Africans think they are the big shot, the second largest economy in South Africa. In Africa, they can do whatever they want. But they're not visionaries. Hence, I pitch my solution at pushing the AU and the leaders in Africa. Because when South Africa, I predict, the ANC is done, right? It lost its majority. I predict that we South Africans, if we are not careful, we will find ourselves in the same position as our brethren from neighboring countries. And thus, not only as a matter of a survival tool, but the only way that the African person can have dignity and standing in the world of other people, it is for unity, and through unity can we be united and can we own the means of production. So the narrow interest of Dudula makes it seem xenophobic, but I will say it's ill-informed because the rationale of constraints of resources, constraints of the job market could easily be solved if we were allowed the very same Tutula people, right? If they knew what Zimbabweans need. We could be exchanging markets. We could be literally as basic as supermarkets. We could be taking our resources here as Dudula people, going to Zimbabwe, partnering up with Zimbabweans, making sure that Zimbabwe thrives. Zimbabwe has a lot of money. You would have seen in that documentary done by Al Jazeera, where they were stifling gold and billions of monies were exchanged in Zimbabwe. So there's no such thing as no money. The problem is a problem of governance. And therefore, I would not say they're xenophobic, but ill conceived and very dangerous because one day we would be crying to our fellow brothers in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique, in Namibia, in Nigeria, and they will remind us of our actions now because we think we are better than them. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, interesting. Let's stick to that point of leadership. You talk about how we somehow South Africa and the entire continent leads leadership that can address some of these issues. From where you stand, has has the South African political elite
Yeah.
or the institutions have responded to these vigilante actions, and is the response adequate? Really?
You know, our government is something else. So instead of dealing with the borders, instead of themselves carrying out these operations, a couple of days ago they was arrested 3 Dudula members. Now, that's not how you deal with the matter. You have a structural problem of illegal or undocumented people. Whether you arrest Dudula members or not, it's not going to take away the plight of many South Africans who are feeling the same thing. Therefore, the solution that our government has attempted to do is to intimidate Dudula members in the way of arrest. It's not structurally dealing with the problem of undocumented persons. And to that extent, that's not going to help. My brother, it saddens me to predict this, but the likelihood of you one of these days waking up with so-called xenophobic attacks on undocumented foreigners, it's near. It's very near. South Africans, they've been doing this for a long time. Now, instead of government being seen to be acting in the best interest of its citizens, they are now oppressing the very same people who are speaking. So I don't think that's a solution. I think our government does not have a proper solution. And I don't think that they are carrying a proper mandate from the people. Let me give you an example. If really, really African leaders were serious, a phone call from our president Cyril Ramaphosa to our neighboring countries, we know who's doing most the damage. Let's take an issue of crime. It's anecdotal from my side. When we watch some of the TVs in South Africa, many of the people who usually are caught with drugs or selling drugs come from Nigeria. Many of them, not all of them, many of them. So, are you meaning to tell me you don't have intelligence that can go to neighborhood targeted, and it must be targeted indeed, because that is the intel on the street. We see other security firms doing this on live television. People who commit heist, house robberies, you can dissect who does what in South Africa. Are you telling me that our intelligence are not smart enough to target these things and root out criminal activities? They can. But I can tell you something that is very sad. Some of these officials are eating with the very same criminals, including the South African criminals. So they don't have any interest in solving the issue, because it's easier to get away with crime when you are undocumented. And sadly, some of our people get murdered in the process. So, but I don't even want to pitch it there, Mr. Paul. Mine is this, as I said, as a Pan Africanist, and I hope I'm not just dreaming. Knowing the potential that Africa has, knowing that we are the youngest continent in all of the world, knowing that we produce some of the smartest people who have PhDs from even outside the Africa. I just don't understand why we don't tap into that potential and do things for our own development. I don't understand, because when we do that, then all these problems goes away.
Mm. You make a great point. There are a lot of analysts who have said that the intellectual balance of power has been shifting in our favor. We are
Yeah.
at that point where we go to the same schools. You can literally go to Harvard, or you are taught by the same professor that teach at Harvard. So
Yes.
that balance, that intellectual balance of power, has shifted in our favor. But
Yes.
somehow our situations haven't changed that much.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something that many people do not want to admit. I've come to a realization that and this saddens me. You know the principles of Ubuntu that we as in South Africa have championed, but it's a saying that goes all Africa, all throughout Africa. You know, and I quote our former leader Chris Hani, who said, "Never adopt the habits or the methods or the ethos of your enemies." But I often wonder if true emancipation for Africans may not take the same violence in the form of defense of who we are and our resources in the manner that we were conquered. I wonder, it saddens me, but I often think the way that our current leaders have navigated so called emancipation has not worked. We have spoken about diplomacy. We have spoken about negotiations. We have spoken about forgiveness. We have spoken about reparations. None of these things, my apologies, none of these things seem to have been assisting our people. We are poorer. Our resources have been exploited any day. I wonder if one day, as Africans, we cannot just wake up and say, you will buy the gold at a fair price. You will buy the coltan at a fair price. You will buy the platinum at a fair price. We don't care whether you are America. We don't care whether you are England. We don't care whether you are China. And thus, get the material power into the hands of our people. And that we will see prosperity.
Are there any measures or any policy changes that the government can put in place to address some of the root causes that you alluded to earlier?
Now, South Africa has wonderful laws. We have been told, and since I'm a lawyer, I fairly understand the liberal nature of our laws. Now, we have sufficient legislative framework borrowed from the United Nations, borrowed from the regional African Union framework, and what is left, it's proper implementation. So we don't lack any policy framework or legislation. In actual fact, we just have to apply our laws. There's nothing wrong with them. But to your broader point, it's not just South Africa. If you read, for example, the Agenda 2063 of the African Union and the lofty ideas it has in terms of emancipation of women or emancipation of us as a group, if you read the African free trade agreement, which by the way I happen to teach at my university as well. Now we are not lacking the mental sort of fortitude to legally and from a policy point of view frame what we want. We just don't implement. So we have done it. We have got African free trade. We've got various regional groups, SADC, sub-regional, SADC, ECOWAS. All of these groups are meant to be economic groups to champion economic emancipation. But as you and I know, we've been singing that song ever since emancipation in the 1960s, and we are now worse. So what we must do, perhaps, from going forward, let's implement the framework that exists, and from then on, we will learn whether it works or it doesn't work. We have not scratched the surface there. That is our starting point. Secondly, this is more of a mental attitude. We must understand that we can do this. We've got plenty of examples. China was once colonized by the same people who colonized us. Rwanda is doing very well. Um, the Tanzania and Kenya are doing relatively well. We've got Singapore is doing very well. We've got various examples of how we can emerge as a people. But I have a sense that the inferiority complex that was inculcated in us for centuries still pervades our mind. And it's not because we can't, it's because we're made to believe that we cannot. We have to overcome this mentality first. And only then can we implement these frameworks that we have set out for ourselves without fear, without prejudice, and to the best interest of our people. That is the way forward. Let's overcome our fears of the unknown.
Uh, very briefly, do you think that Dudula, these guys, if they're allowed to do what they are doing, what kind of threat does this pose to the immigrants who are in South Africa?
It's
Obviously,
a,
there are
s-
people who are sick or who want to go to the hospitals, but they are worried that if they get into these hospitals, they're going to be attacked by some of these vigilantes.
it's a serious one. I mean, I cannot condone their actions. I cannot. Person first. In my language, we call it batupili, meaning people first. In singular term, mutupili, a person first. So, if, like I said earlier on, if Dudula was allowing these people to get their medication, to get the help that they need, and afterwards deal with them, perhaps, maybe. But I putting myself in the position of a young mother who's in labor pains, wanting the best out of her child, and being told I must go away, where I cannot even get help. If you're telling a Zimbabwean person to go back home whilst they're in labor, I mean, what type of uncivilized behavior is that? So that poses serious danger to our fellow Africans. And if this was done to them, they would not like it as well. There are many things that have been proposed. I mean, I remember somebody saying, keep a record of the people who you're servicing. Take the bill, send it back to Zimbabwe, send it back to Lesotho, send it back to Mozambique and say, pay for this bill, it's your person. So perhaps there are many agreements that could be sorted out amongst the states, but chasing somebody away when they are in pain, that I cannot forgive. You cannot justify that type of action in any shape or form.
Well, Dr. Maripeng, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your insight.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have some more chats in the future.
Tell us what you think about Operation Dudula aimed at chasing away non South Africans from clinics and government funded public hospitals. Share your comments in the comment section below and let us know what you think about this practice. And of course, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to Paul Ndiho on Substack, X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Spotify.